You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
I have like no neck at all in this light. I'm just a head at the end of a skin
You're like the
tunnel.
thumb men from Spy Kiss.
Okay. Anyways,
No,
good
I
evening,
can see
everyone.
I can see it. Your neck, I can see it.
If you want to know what we're talking about, you can watch our YouTube channel. But anyways,
It gets kind of spicy over
girls.
there. We are the Good Evening Girls. Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword, One Neck. My neck. Grace has zero neck today.
I have no neck today. And sometimes it just be like that.
It is. This is the new world order, okay? Sometimes people don't have necks.
We're your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast. Hopefully we still are.
Oh my god. Yes, I hope so. And you did it. Repracticing.
I know. I did have it written down here. No, I'm just kidding. What if I just held up a sign and it's like Podword Crosscast written in crayon?
Okay. Well, okay. That's one thing, but don't, come for me because I write it every single week in my notes so that I remember.
So that's why you get it right every time.
Well, it helps, I write it. I have intro ourselves, fave weekly crossword podcast. Then I have
intro
hits and
ourselves.
Shits.
My name is Chelsea.
Guys, you don't understand how hard it is to get me to this exact moment to be able to do this podcast. It's multiple days of preparation, and here we are.
She's been up since 4 this morning, and we're recording at 7:45 p.m. So
right, you don't even know, and like the amount of work that goes into it versus like compared to the product. I mean, you would never know how much effort I put into this, but I swear it's a lot. That being said, welcome. Let's get into our hits and shits for the week. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. So I mentioned last week that I was going on a trip to visit my parents, and don't worry, I lived by myself and I quarantined before, and I came here where my sister and her kids are currently living. Anyways, that's my current situation. By the way, if you hear like pitter patter on this, coming from my mic, that is what that is, a 2-year-old running around. But I printed out some of the grids for good, and that's what I've been doing. So I haven't done any of the like New York Times or whatever.
I did mostly grids for good as well, and New Yorker.
Okay.
They're
I wonder
so
if we did the same grids for good.
I do wonder if we did the same topic, honestly.
Maybe. Actually, we could have. Mine is from Grids for Good. Is yours?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Oh,
okay.
Here we go. All right.
Well, one of
the tension is mounting.
A grid that I really liked from Grids for Good was What's So Funny by Robin Weintraub.
Nice.
I think she's done I've seen her in the New York Times and stuff, which a lot of these constructed from Grids for Goods have been published. Well, actually, they all are very established constructors, I believe.
Yeah,
but
and
her
Robin
things are always
is from Incubator as well.
Oh, okay. I feel like her stuff's always funny. And then, she titled this What's So Funny. But some of the ones I really liked were 55 across, sits down and makes a call, ? It was butt dials.
Nice.
And then 41 across, talk like this, but like this was written in all caps, and it was shout.
Nice.
I feel like some people still don't know, like, if you're typing in all caps,
it's shouting.
like you're screaming. So unless you're trying to scream in your typing, in your text,
it down.
Please. If you want to emphasize, bold, underline, italicize, but
no, capitalize is, I am here, I am queer. That's like, that's
that
exactly
would actually be
a
good opportunity to use all caps, but
it's true.
If you're trying to say like, where are you, all caps.
Do you know which Grids for Good one that is? Like what number it is? Because I think they numbered
number
them.
5.
Cool. I only did 1, 2, and 3 this week.
Okay. I don't know where my topic is from.
Mm-hmm.
It's from 4, so we're Gucci.
Oh, no. And just so everybody also knows, I currently live at home.
what that sound means? It's time for our dog portion.
I live at home by myself with my dog and my boyfriend. And usually my boyfriend will kind of quarantine in the bedroom with my crazy, needy beagle mix. He is not home tonight, so I'm here alone with my beagle mix. He probably will bark multiple times throughout the recording. I will do everything I can to edit it out, but if you hear it, and if you watch and you see me jump, that's because the dog has barked. It's very shrill, and there's nothing I can do aside from potentially drug him, which I will not do live on camera.
This is live on camera. This is what it's like to record remotely. We used to have a nice little recording booth with soundproof walls, and
except for when people would walk up the stairs and it'd be clomping away. We'd be like, "Can you please stomping up the metal stairs above our recording booth.
I know you're trying to work at your job that you get paid for, but we're trying to record this free podcast you do. Okay, something that I didn't like in Grids for Good, well, it's not that I didn't like it, but I saw it in the New York Times last week too, and I tweeted about it, is now all of a sudden, earn is showing up in all these crosswords, and they keep cluing it having to do with coffee.
Yes, I've noticed that. Like, I think people in catering might call a massive, like those silver, catering jugs for coffee, they might call that an urn. But like, when I think of an urn, I think of like a Grecian urn, that you see at like the Museum of Modern
Art. I think
of
like someone's, ashes hanging out on your fireplace. Just
it's kind of morbid.
Yeah. Okay, what are yours?
Let me see. What do I got? So I did the New Yorker and the Grids for Good this week. I'm going to start with the Friday, July 10th New Yorker by Anna Schechtman. I'm just doing a quick shout out to 50 Down, medium for short-lived sculptures. The answer is ice. Grace actually did a topic for ice sculptures in episode 46, so go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Let me see. What else we got? Oh, the Monday, July 13th New Yorker by Patrick Berry. I really liked 50 across because I felt like he was talking directly to me. And then, like, when you finish a New Yorker puzzle, like that little, overlay pops up and they do like a little comic and they have like, we're highlighting this clue. Anyway, so 50 across was alt rock genre whose performers often stare at their effects pedal. And the answer is shoegaze, which if you don't know me, I am a huge shoegaze fan, but that's pretty, obvious if you just look at my hair. And the clue, like the little like shout out at the end, the overlay was about Beach House, which is one of my favorite bands. So I just wanted to give that a shout out. I also thought you would like this one, Grace. 33 Down, maker of the Razr phone. And the answer is Motorola. Did you have a Razr phone?
No, I didn't. I was not that cool.
No, I didn't have a Razr phone either. My dad bought me
and that's why we're here making a crossword podcast.
Everybody in my school had like the girls anyway, had like the pink Razr phone with like the string that came with it and like the little charm. My dad bought me the first like phone. It was like a Nokia and it flipped open and it had a keyboard. And so people were jealous of me. At least I like to pretend that they were jealous of me because they had their Razrs where they had to do the to like, get the texting. But I had a keyboard, so F your Razr. Also, you didn't do the New Yorkers, but Amy Lucido made an appearance on the Wednesday New Yorker puzzle, which is cool. And I don't know if we've talked about it, but the New Yorker only used to have Monday and Friday puzzles, and they just recently introduced a Wednesday puzzle, which is exciting. So Amy was the July 15th Wednesday puzzle, and we talk about Amy all the time. We love her. Her puzzles and her clues are so funny. For like one across, her opener was uses a fake ID ? And the answer is catfishes, which is, really funny. What about this? 29 across. I had no idea what this was, and I looked it up, so I want to know if you know what this is. Gathering that charges a flat fee ? And the answer is rent party. Have you heard of a rent party before?
No. Is it so people help you pay your rent?
Yeah. So you would hire like a musician or something. Everybody comes over and they like chip in to like see the musician play, and then that money goes to your rent. I had never heard of that, but it seems like something potentially people a little bit older than us would have done. I've never heard of anybody our age doing that. Maybe I'm wrong.
But now that I know that's a possibility.
I know. I'm going to come over as soon as you're back from wherever you are, and we're going to throw a little rent party.
Anyone that comes over to my house has to pay me $1. Okay? Every month I'll make $0.
Especially right now.
Yeah.
I also wanted to shout out 35 across from her puzzle, excited words spoken on Hanukkah. This took me ages to figure out, because I thought there was going to be like a Yiddish word or something.
Dreidel?
That I didn't know. No, and the answer is open it. And because you're given presents on Hanukkah, and just like you're given presents on Christmas. And I just was like, oh, that's a nice way to reframe it so that I can like understand that, Hanukkah is like a gift.
It's not like the default, opening gifts isn't just for Christmas.
Right, exactly. I liked that it was framed that way. Let me see. Do you have anything else?
Yes. On Grids for Good, number 4, Fun Things to Do Inside by Frances Heaney. 43 across. Location of the word juicy on some sweatpants.
Butt?
Ass.
Nice. Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Ass is always, it often shows up in puzzles, but it's always clued as like a donkey. And I'm like, okay, I
or
have
like
nothing against
a
donkeys.
obnoxious person or something.
Right. But an ass is also a butt, So like, let's use it. Okay, I have some from Grids for Good #1, Giving Back by Caitlin Reed. 57 across. Dubious Hollywood Honor. The answer is Razzie Award. And if you don't know what the Razzies are, it's basically like the Oscars for shitty films. Like if you listen to our 2-part special on Cats, that's our 50th episode, you would have learned that Cats, the 2019 movie, was nominated for 9 Razzies and won 6 of them. So
that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I also liked 53 Down from that puzzle. Soccer Great Mia, and the answer is Ham with 2 M's. It's just nice to see, successful women being, clued in puzzles. I was Mia Hamm play when I was really into soccer. So that was, a highlight of my adolescence.
Didn't she? I feel like she did a photo shoot once for a cover of some sports magazine where she was like topless and she was holding the soccer ball in front of her, and it was like this huge scandal.
Was it?
At the time? Know.
Maybe.
Now everyone would be like, who cares? I just remember that.
Or
maybe it was just a dream of mine. I don't know.
Yeah, right. You're like, it's so scandalous.
Hard to tell.
One thing I didn't like from that Grids for Good puzzle, and I don't know, it's 12 down. The way it's clued is a little strange to me. 12 down is sweatshops, ? And the answer is saunas. And I like the play there, but like a sweatshop is not, I think, to be taken lightly. So that's just like a merp. But yeah.
I agree with that.
What else you got?
That's really it for me today.
That's it for you? Oh my God.
I believe.
One last call out in our Hits for Shits. One of our fave constructors, Pablo Pasco, released a book, which you can go buy on Amazon, called Crossword Puzzles for Kids. We retweeted about it, so if you go onto our Twitter, you can look at our feed and click the link and find the Amazon link, or you can just go to Amazon and search Crossword Puzzles for Kid, and it's by Pablo Pasco. And there's 60 plus puzzles for your favorite kid or not kid. You can buy it for an adult too. Apparently their puzzles are great for adults. An
adult who is not that good at puzzles.
Exactly.
Could kind of be a stepping stone for them to get right into it.
Check it out. And congrats to Pablo. That's very exciting. I wish I had published a kid's crossword book.
I know. I maybe we should buy one. I just would be interested to see like how you are able to make a puzzle that is still challenging but accessible for a child to do. Because it's not, most kids I feel like do not crossword puzzles, but the kind.
What are they called?
Like
word searches, but
it's kind of like a crossword, but it's never shaped like a square or anything.
Right. Yeah, they're like acrostic type crosswords or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, they're not the same as regular crosswords, and that like a kid can figure out. But I'd be interested to see. I'm sure he did a great job because his puzzles are always fun.
Yep. Well, maybe so I'll buy one, and then next time we see each other in person in like 3 years, we can sit down and do it.
Cool. So wait for our review on that.
Yes.
About 3 years.
Coming soon. 3 years from now. And I don't think we have any corrections corners because we're perfect. So
yeah, sorry about it.
This is a gentle reminder to our listeners that we do have open DMs if you want us to, correct something. We cannot and will not guarantee that we will talk about it on our corrections corner, especially if it hurts our ego. But
no, we always correct ourselves if we get if someone tells us. But I don't go back after I do an episode and like keep researching my topic. So there's no way for me to know unless someone points it out.
Yep. So if you hear something, say something. Okay.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah. So I think that means we should move into the coin flip. What do you think?
Let's do it, baby. Flip it.
Also, I live in an apartment, so if you hear banging around, it's because I've got neighbors walking through the hallways. Okay.
How dare they?
How dare you? All right. So I'm going to flip the coin right now. Tails.
Me? I feel like I haven't gone first in 5 ever.
It's true.
Well, because we only recorded one of our normal episodes last week, and then before that had been a while. So
it's true. We're back.
Cool.
We're back in business.
Okay. So my topic is from Fun Things to Do Inside by Frances Heaney, which is the number 4 crossword on Grids for Good. And it was 43 down, circle near a piercing, perhaps.
Areola.
Yes.
Yes! I'm so excited.
I thought you would like to know that was crossed with one of my hits, the location of the word juicy on some sweatpants. The ass was also, the A in ass was the A in areola. So thank you for that, Francis Heaney.
Oh my God, amazing.
You would never see that in the New York Times.
Never. And look how much joy it brought us all.
Yeah, we're easily amused over here.
We are.
I'm going to talk about piercings, the history of piercings, like in different civilizations, not just nipple piercings, but all piercings in general. I will be talking about genital piercings at some point. So this is not really NSFW or kid-friendly if you're listening to this with your children.
If you're listening to this with your children, I don't understand. I mean, maybe your children
I feel bad for your children, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about piercings. Well, the reason I chose this topic is because I have had quite a few piercings in my day. Chelsea also has a couple piercings. Mm-hmm. I've always liked them, and I feel like they get kind of a bad rap. Some
they definitely
people don't like piercings at all, and I feel like they've been around. You'll see from what I tell you, like they've been around, in different cultures forever. It's just a part of self-expression. So
I've ever okay.
Yeah, we should embrace it. And also, I think it's important to know, like, the cultural significance of some piercings that are now very popular, the septum being one of them.
Oh, right, which I have.
Yeah, and I also have, but I don't wear mine. Okay, so piercings are one of the most ancient body modifications known to mankind. And then they also have cultural significance in multiple civilizations throughout history, either signifying class, documenting experiences, or symbolizing different rites of passage. The earliest known evidence of body piercings is a stone relief from Nimrud, Iraq, that depicts a man with a pierced ear, and this is from 9th century BC.
Damn.
It's a long, long time ago. It's thought that in early civilization tribes, earrings were worn for superstitious reasons. So people believed that demons could enter the body through the ears and into your brain, but demons were repelled by metal. So people would put metal in their ears to repel demons. Now, I read that a couple different places. I don't know if that's true, but that's a theory that's out there by people who know more than I do. But then, do you remember Otzi, that mummified body that was found in the Alps?
Yes.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, it was like 2016.
Like in the 2000s.
16, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is the oldest mummified body known to us, and it's over 5,300 years old. And that body was found with gauged earlobes. So if you don't know, gauges are when you stretch your ear piercing hole.
Right. Did you stretch your ears ever?
No, I never did.
I did. I got to 00, and I force stretched my gauges, which you're definitely not supposed to do. So, like, to gauge your ears, like, you pierce them with a skinny size, and then you slowly move up. And I would, like, be at, like, let's say you get pierced at, like, an 18, and, like, 16 is the next size up, like, the next biggest size. I would force myself from, like, an 18 to a 12, and I would just, like, force it through. And that's,
I'm surprised your lobes they
close right
tight.
back up. I know. My skin just likes to get tight.
If there's one thing that Chelsea has, it is tight lobes, people. Okay, do not test her. But
I will show you.
His gauges were 7 to 11 millimeters in diameter.
Damn.
Yeah. So people have been doing that forever. It's not just your local Hot Topic cashiers. Does Hot Topic still exist? Yes, it does. Because I bought something from their online store the other day.
Yeah. Oh my god. Did you get something cool? I need to know. Sorry. Go ahead. Continue. We'll talk about your Hot Topic purchase later.
Okay. So other famous people in history who had piercings, King Tut, who was the child king. He was around in the 1300s BC, and there is also evidence of him wearing earrings.
Okay.
Julius Caesar in ancient Rome brought earrings into fashion during his reign in the 40s.
Okay, some BC. Of the most famous emperors ever had piercings. Let your son get their ear pierced, okay?
Yeah. Men, if you're listening and you want to be like Julius Caesar or King Tut, get your ears pierced.
They both died early, though, just to say.
Everyone died early back then. Okay, so Aztecs also had a lot of piercings, but their piercings indicated hierarchy. So the placement of the piercing and the material that hung from it showed where you stood in the world. If you were a king or high nobility, you were allowed to have lip, ear, and nose piercings made of gold and precious stones. If you weren't nobility, you could have ear piercings, but they were made of less precious materials like bone. So it was like a status symbol.
Okay.
The best bet for getting bigger and nicer stones was to show massive military success. So for each prisoner of war captured or big battle victory achieved, a man's lip ring would be enlarged a size.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely like a status thing.
Right.
And also, you know, to show your achievements.
So if you're
Like your
into
resume.
guys and you're looking for a husband, look for the guy
Yeah.
with the big, wobbly, slappy, you know, lip.
Lip ring. Okay. The Elizabethan era of the late 16th century in Britain, any man of nobility had at least one ear piercing to show off his wealth.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was definitely like a status thing all through history. But now I'm going to talk about different types of piercings on the body and like some of their historical significance.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about earrings since we were talking about it. So during the medieval period, jewelry was seen as like a high class thing in most countries except for Italy. In Italian culture, they didn't like earrings and they instead used them to denote lower class people.
Interesting.
So they were used to connote that you were a member of another group. So you were like a pariah.
Okay.
In fact, in Italian paintings from this time, Mary Magdalene was depicted in paintings as removing her earrings to, quote, return to the Christian world. And the group of people expected to wear earrings were those who were frowned upon by society in general. Slaves of both genders were supposed to have one earring, as were Jewish people and sex workers.
Ay. Well,
But it was just Italy. Because,
interesting.
yeah, in other countries it was seen as like a high
Status
status
thing,
thing.
right.
So I don't know why. Okay, and then sailors are like known for having just one ear pierced, and that's been around forever, not only by pirates, but also by like high-ranking naval officers like Francis Drake and Walter Raleigh. They also had one ear piercing, and the reason why is not clear. Some sailors believe that if you had your ear pierced, you had better eyesight out on sea.
Okay.
I don't think that's true because I have terrible eyesight and I have a lot of ear piercings.
Are they like the original E-boy? You know, like their one
Kind of.
dangly earring.
Yeah, in like a bleached strip, like in the front of their hair. Another reason that sailors might have had piercings is that they could use them to kind of show like different experiences they've had at sea, like how many times they've crossed the equator. They could use that or use tattoos to do that as well.
Okay.
And it was also thought that the practice developed because a drowned sailor's funeral could be paid for with his earrings.
I like that theory.
So either the earrings are really expensive or the funerals are really cheap or somewhere in the middle.
A little bit of both.
But yeah, it's basically like your life insurance, essentially.
Okay. We talked
Have a
about pirates.
fancy
They
earring.
actually did have life insurance on their boats, by the way.
Yeah, actually, they had a very fair system on there. That was an old episode.
Yeah.
Okay, in the 1600s, it was expected and fashionable for young European noblemen advertising themselves on the marriage market to wear super fancy earrings. Portraits of male monarchs at the time, like Charles I, always prominently feature a beautiful earring, often a drop of pearl.
Yes. Oh my God. They're so femme in like a way that just is such a mood to me.
It's probably going to come back, I'm telling you.
Are you kidding? We already have the boys wearing earrings now.
I know, but I want like a pearl drop earring. Is what I'm
One single
asking
pearl
for.
drop. Yeah.
So
Boys, if you're out there.
eventually, so basically back in the day, it was like men who wore earrings even more than women. But eventually that went out of style.
Right.
Men didn't wear earrings anymore. But then in the 80s and 90s, they came back into style in the West. The New York Times reported in the 1980s and early 90s that right ear piercings were meant to be a way for gay men to signal their sexuality.
I remember this being told as a young kid that that's what that meant. And it doesn't mean that anymore, I don't think. I mean, maybe it does in certain, communities, but I don't think anybody our age really like abides by that.
No, I do remember a lot of kids in my elementary school, a lot of boys did get their ear pierced. It was like a fashion thing, but they would get both pierced.
Right.
It was like you couldn't just get one because then you were gay.
Right.
Stupid.
Exactly.
But so it came back into style in the 80s and 90s with like the gay men, but now I feel like it's definitely coming more into current trend, especially
I also
like
think
Gen Z.
Yes, I also think in the 80s and 90s, like costume jewelry was huge. Like girls would wear, like mismatching earrings or like one big piece of costume jewelry earrings. I don't know.
I want to bring that back.
I do too.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about nose rings.
Let's do it.
Nose rings go way, way, way back.
Okay.
The first recorded mention of a nose ring is actually in the Bible from Genesis 24:22. When Abraham decides to find a wife for his son Isaac, he chooses Rebecca and gives her a gold nose ring to seal the deal.
Oh my God. I'm basically Rebecca. Look at my gold nose ring.
Yeah. So if you're still proposing with an engagement ring for someone's finger,
Try again.
yeah. Especially if you call yourself a so-called Christian.
Well, let's rile the Christians up this episode.
Yeah. According to The Naked Woman, a study of the female body by Desmond Morris, quote, it is still a common practice among the Berber and Bedouin peoples of North Africa and the Middle East, where the husband gives his bride a gold nose ring when they are married. The size of the ring indicates the wealth of the family, and if a divorce occurs later, the rejected wife can use the gold in her nose to provide her with financial security.
Interesting. You talked a little bit about nose rings in like Indian weddings as well.
Mm-hmm. On our episode about henna, I talked about the different, it was like the 13 accoutrements
like
for a Hindu bride. Yeah. And nose piercings big nose rings is one of them. But yeah, so I guess that's your alimony, basically. The practice was brought to India, speaking of India, in the 16th century. A stud or ring is often worn in the left nostril by women, as the left side is associated with female reproductive organs. The piercing is supposed to lessen the pain of birth and menstruation.
Though
I have my nose pierced on the right side. I didn't know that when I was 16 and got it pierced.
Next time.
Yeah. So in the 70s, a bunch of American hippies went to India to go to these like Indian ashrams, and they saw, all the nose piercings around. So they brought it back to the US, and then in the US it became a sign of nonconformity, and it was like rebellious hippie culture, which is just interesting to see like how it can be interpreted in different cultures.
Yeah.
Like I remember I had to beg my mom to let me get my nose pierced, and she was not happy about it. But then my sister's friend, her family was from India, and she was like, well, she's had her nose pierced forever, and like, her mom has her nose pierced. Like it's
right.
It's, I feel like here it's almost seen as like a trashy thing,
right?
But then in other countries it's like beautiful and a sign of, that you're married, that you're rich.
Right, exactly. I think it's really interesting too, because like, I mean, speaking of piercings, I was actually thinking about tattoos today, and it's another similar thing. Like tattoos have like cultural significance in a lot of different indigenous, cultures around the world. But I think in America, it's more of like, at least it kind of started off as being more of like this rebellious, subculture type thing. It's becoming much more popular now.
Yeah.
But like the amount of begging I had to do to get like, I got my lip pierced when I was in London when I was 16 years old. I came home, my dad looked at me and he was like, take that out of your lip right now. But he was also the one who says, when you're 18, I'll take you to get a tattoo. So it's just like, it's interesting.
Well, it's also because piercings aren't permanent. So,
right, exactly.
I feel like I used to have my nose pierced. I mean, the hole's still there, but I don't wear the ring anymore.
Right.
Like, I just took it out eventually. A tattoo is on you forever. So I feel like, if you want to experiment with piercings, it's just like trying a different piece of jewelry.
For sure. And I'm like,
in my opinion.
I don't have my gauges anymore because I don't want them. I don't want them ever again. Thankfully, I could take them out and the hole's like closed up.
Yeah. And even if they don't, you can get like little surgery like our friend Mike had to get, where they like stitch the hole back together.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about septum rings.
All right.
Which is fun. Okay, so septum piercings are quite common among tribal peoples, often used to make warrior men look fierce. For example, the Asmat tribe in Irian Jaya, Indonesia, will stretch these piercings to as much as 25 millimeters in diameter, allowing for the leg bone of a pig or the femur of a killed enemy to be placed within it.
Holy heck.
That would be intimidating.
I would be scared.
I'm like, that guy has a human leg bone through his nose. I'm not messing with him.
He can do whatever he wants. Let him go.
Yeah.
Let him do his thing.
The Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas pierced their septums with gold and jade to symbolize the water and sun gods. So theirs was more of a religious thing. In India, Nepal, and Tibet, an amulet called a bullock is attached to the piercing, often so big that it has to be lifted so that the person with the piercing can eat. It is believed that piercing the nose prevents infection, though the bullock itself seems to be purely ornamental and a way to show off your wealth. I've seen pictures of that where people have like the very big, like it covers your mouth.
Yeah. I got my septum pierced when I moved. It was like my first year in Chicago or something like that. And I went with my friend and we both got our septums pierced at the same time. And to this day, it is one of the most controversial things I have ever done in the eyes of certain people in certain families that I know. I've been told, like, get that thing out of your nose.
You look like a cow.
You look like a cow, a bull, or whatever. And I'm like, are you supposed to be on the farm? I'm like, first of all, watch your mouth. Like,
well, yeah. See, mine is like, Chelsea's is a hoop. Mine is it's like an open hoop. So I have it flipped up into my nose most of the time. So people don't even know I'm there. So it's like, it's not a big deal. If I want it out, it's out. And if I don't, it's not.
And it's also like, mind your own business about someone else's body. That's a lesson you should take away from this. Exactly.
All right. So moving on down the face to tongue piercings.
Ooh.
Between the 14th and 16th centuries, tongue piercings originated as a ritual among the Aztecs and Mayans as a form of blood sacrifice. They would pass a thread through the piercing to enhance the flow of blood. Ouch. Priests and shamans in these cultures would also pierce their own tongues to create an altered state of consciousness so they could communicate with the gods.
Tongue piercings are dangerous. If they're done
you have
wrong.
a lot of veins. You have a lot of veins in there.
Yeah.
And it's just like a, thick.
Yeah, like a
thick muscle,
flabby piece of skin you got.
Yeah. So 20th century carnival workers learned about like the spiritual tongue piercings, and they started performing them as a sideshow attraction in the West.
God.
And then in the 1980s, with the opening of Gauntlet in LA, that was the first professional piercing shop in the US. It was there was a resurgence for tongue piercings. There was finally like a professional person who could do it. Elaine Angel, who founded Gauntlet, is often credited with promoting the piercing, both for shock value and for the enhancement of oral sex.
Not safe for work.
I know. I feel like that's what people mostly know tongue piercings for. But, get whatever piercing you want. Although, as someone who is very into, dental health, you have to be careful with tongue piercings because it can be really damaging to your teeth and your gum line. So, just throwing that out there.
Do your research before you get your piercings, honestly. Seriously.
Yeah. Okay, lip piercings. So lip piercings are extremely common in tribal cultures as well. Each tribe has their own style. Most use labrettes and plates. So labrettes is like a stud on one side and like a flat back on the other. There are only two tribes in Africa, the Dogon and the Nuba, who use rings. So
interesting.
Even though I feel like here lip rings are very common, they're not in like tribal cultures.
Right.
So
I had
Dogons,
a labre then. I got my
like,
Monroe pierced.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about that piercing.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times they don't like to pierce with rings because it moves around too much while it's healing.
For sure. And they're like, you have to wait, and then you can change it to a ring if you want.
Yeah. So the Dogon or Dogon tribe, Dogon tribe, would pierce their lips to represent the creation of the world. In their mythology, the goddess Numi wove thread through her teeth, but when it came out, the thread was transformed into speech.
Wow, that's so nice.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, you pierce with a needle. That makes sense.
Yeah.
In many cultures, lip piercings are part of a marriage ritual and are meant to enhance a woman's beauty. Oftentimes, about 6 months before a wedding, the groom-to-be will insert a plate into his future bride's top lip. The bigger the plate, the bigger the dowry. So again, it's just like another flex, essentially, to show like how rich you are. Okay, belly button rings. In ancient Egypt, this piercing was a sign of royal status. Only the pharaoh was allowed to have his navel pierced, and anyone else found with this piercing would be executed.
Aye. I
read this a couple places. And then it wasn't like a very popular piercing among, lay people in the in the later centuries, but in the late 1900s, so like the 1980s, 90s, bikinis started to come back into style, or started coming into style in general. And the belly ring saw a resurgence because in the 80s, showing off your belly button was seen as taboo because it was associated with like sexuality because people think it's like a miniature vagina. I don't know. That's what I read.
Oh my God.
I'm not saying I feel that way.
Policing of women's bodies has always been bananas.
But then in the 90s, everyone started wearing low-rise jeans and all that stuff. And it became extremely popular, especially because of cultural icons like Naomi Campbell and Madonna started wearing them. So a lot of people had their belly button pierced.
That was a huge one for a long
I got mine
time.
pierced when I was 18.
I never did the belly button.
I don't wear it in anymore. But now that I know that like Egyptian royalty used to wear gold rings in their navels, like maybe I'll just get a gold ring. Just feel good
Wear
about
it with your
myself.
bikini
Okay.
and attach it up to your septum piercing, like a little chain or something.
Ouch. You do not want to trip if you're doing that.
No, right? Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to talk about nipple piercings, which is what the crossword
okay.
clue was about. So in ancient Rome, men pierced their nipples to symbolize virility and their camaraderie with other men. So it
Oh
was
my
just like,
God.
just like the ear piercings was like a
Yeah.
man thing before. This made me laugh. So in the mid 14th century, Queen Isabella of France introduced garments of the grand neckline, which were dresses that had such low necklines, sometimes all the way down to your belly button, that the nipples were often just out and displayed.
Okay.
So nipple piercings became a form of jewelry to match the dress.
Okay.
This is basically like when Rihanna wore that see-through
Right.
dress.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
like the neckline is down to your belly button. Just don't even bother.
Why are you wearing a
and your
dress?
boobs are out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wear a skirt at that point. In the 1890s, the bosom ring. Sorry, BOSOM. I feel like I'm
Bosom?
not saying it right. Bosom. There you go. Bosom. The bosom ring.
I was like,
Came back-
bosom.
Yeah. The bosom ring came back into vogue for high class women. So seen as like a fancy, like high class thing.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I feel like it does not have that reputation now.
No.
Meanwhile, in Victorian England, they were supposedly prescribed by doctors in order to make breastfeeding easier. Which kind of makes sense, because it's like, you can either suck the Capri Sun out of the, out of the foil or stick a straw in there and it comes flowing out. You know what I mean? Also, if you have like inverted nipples, it can make your nipples come out. So
Yeah, it helps that.
any nursing mothers who are listening to this, ask your doctor and your local piercer. Okay, so now we're going to talk about genital piercings.
Hit me with the
This is my
genital
final-
piercings.
This is my final topic. Okay, so in ancient Greece, foreskin piercings would be tied to the base of the penis to keep genitals out of the way during sport and combat. I think there would be easier ways to do it, but I guess they didn't have like jock straps at the time.
I know. I'm like, that is so dangerous. Ooh.
No.
I mean, yeah. Ooh.
It was also used to keep slaves from having sex in both Greece and Rome. So that was a common thing too. It was like used as a like sexual
Prohibitor?
prison. Yeah.
Oh, God. Chastity.
In ancient Rome, there was a particular kind of genital piercing common among athletes and young male singers or actors. They would
Specific?
this is going to get kind of graphic.
All right.
They would have their foreskins pulled forward, pierced on either side, and then bound together in something called a prepucial infibulation. The idea, according to historians, was to help their health and perhaps preserve the singing voices of young trebles by preventing them from having sex. But it was also about modesty. Athletes and other public performers were expected to avoid showing their full penis in public at all costs. I don't know if that was a big problem among non-athletes and performers.
Well,
They were
like
everyone's
athletes
seeing
usually
your-
performed completely nude.
I guess. So you
And they
wouldn't wanna,
rubbed
like, show it
onions
in
all over
public.
themselves. So imagine having this piercing, getting ready to do the Olympic Games. You've just rubbed yourself with onions, which you can listen about in our last episode, okay? And you've got like this is vulgar, your swinging around with your weird little piercing.
Yeah, there has to be an easier way. Okay, so but that was like one side of male
one side.
genital piercings. But there also is like the pleasure side of it. So male genital piercings are mentioned in the Kama Sutra, which goes back to 700 AD. They've also been practiced in Southeast Asia for hundreds of years. In Borneo, the Pelang genital piercing symbolizes the protective power of a man over his family, in addition to sexual pleasure.
Okay.
Any dads out there?
Let us know how it's going.
Yeah. If you really want to show the protective power over your family. No, well, I don't know. I should have looked into this more, but how would people know that you have that? I guess if you have it, you probably want to show it off.
I mean, I feel like people who have it pierced technically like to talk about it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, true. You wouldn't just get it. That's not one of those things that you get and keep secret.
Yeah, no. The
Okay,
reason
so-
you get a genital piercing is to be like, I have a genital piercing.
I'm going to talk about, this is my last thing, the Prince Albert
Let's
name
do it.
for male genital piercings. Because I feel like I've heard this before, but I didn't know why. So, supposedly, legend has it that it's named after Queen Victoria's husband, who we talk about like in our very first episode, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So supposedly he had it done before their marriage in 1825 in order to conceal the bulge in his tight trousers. They say that the piercing was attached to a hook on the inside of his pants.
No!
Okay. But none of this has been found to be true.
Okay. I love it anyway.
People think the piercing's real inventor, Jim Ward, who is, quote, the granddaddy of the modern body piercing
I hate that you just said granddaddy.
Yeah, it's a quote, that's why.
Okay.
And his friend Doug Malloy concocted this story and used it to, like, push people into getting that.
Oh my God, I love it though. I'm going to tell
But I really like
the
the idea of, like, his bulge being so big that he has to have it, like, latched on to the inside.
Again, there must be an easier way.
Yeah, just wear tighter underwear. Or thong.
Or like tape it up or something. I don't know.
Every day when he gets into his pants, he has to, like, hook himself.
You're like, all right. We're all hooked. God. Yeah. You can't make this shit up unless you do make it up. Either way, great story. I love it.
Thank you. I got all of this information from an article called Piercing, A Cultural History of Holes by allthat'sinteresting.com. They don't have the author name on there. And then also from a bustle.com article called The Surprising History of Piercings by J.R. Thorpe.
Nice. Good job, Thorpe.
And that's that on that. So if this inspires you to get a piercing, please send us a picture of it on Twitter.
We love piercings and we support you. We also like to do a fun thing sometimes at lunch where we'll be like, what kind of piercing do you think that person would have? And it's always fun to see. Don't you remember doing this, sitting around the lunch table and like the table's full and be like, okay, what kind of piercing would Caleb have? For instance, we all said industrial, which is hilarious.
No, I don't remember this.
Were you not there for that?
No, or it's a lot of fun. All memories of normal.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of fun to play. Like if you are a person that has piercings and you're with people who have piercings, or like with people who don't have piercings, it's always fun to kind of be like, which piercing should they get? Like that fits their personality. It's very fun.
Yeah, Caleb would get an industrial, and if you don't know him, then you wouldn't get it.
And if you don't know what an industrial is, Google it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, your turn.
It's my turn. So my topic is also from a Grids for Good puzzle. It's Grids for Good number 3 by Debbie Ellerin. It's a themeless. I honest to God thought Grace might have picked this one, and I'm kind of glad she didn't. But it's always fun to see if she will pick it. So this is 9 down. Passage with the longest undersea section in the world. And the answer is Channel. Channel. So the Channel, for those who don't know, is also known as the Channel Tunnel or Le Tunnel sous la Manche, okay? And it is a 31.35 mile long railway tunnel, and it connects England to France. It connects them at Folkestone in England and Coquelles in France, and it runs beneath the English Channel at the Strait of Dover. It is the only fixed link between the island of Great Britain and the European mainland, and the tunnel carries high-speed Eurostar trains, passenger trains, a Eurotunnel shuttle for like road vehicles, so you can like transport your car through the tunnel if you want, and international freight trains. It's like a big port for that. So let's talk a little bit about the channel, like the English Channel, before we talk about the Channel. So the English Channel, also known as just the Channel, is a part of the Atlantic Ocean that separates southern England from northern France, all the way up to the North Sea via the Strait of Dover. The Strait of Dover is at the eastern end of the channel and is its narrowest point. So the channel is relatively wide, and the Strait of Dover kind of is very, very small, which is like a great place to have an underwater passageway, I think.
That's where I would put mine.
Yeah, the shallowest place, baby. So, let's see here. So it is shallow. It's about 390 feet deep at the Strait of Dover at its widest part, but it's even shallower between Dover and Calais, and between Dover and Calais is where the actual tunnel is, and that is 148 feet deep. So it's not that deep at all there. The channel...
Not if you have to swim that.
Some people do swim it. The channel is home to several islands, such as the Isle of Wight and the Channel Islands, which are both under the British control, and then Chaussee and Mont Saint-Michel, which is under French control. So how did the channel get there? Before the very last glacial period, Britain and Ireland were connected to continental Europe, okay? The link between, Britain and France, or continental Europe, was an unbroken ridge that acted as a natural dam to hold back a huge glacial lake. There were a series of catastrophic glacial floods, which breached the connecting ridge and eventually disconnected Britain from continental Europe. So it's been hundreds of thousands of years since there's been any way to cross the channel through any sort of natural landmass.
Yeah, I was going to say, when was it how long ago was it connected? Like Pangea?
Like, no.
Days?
Sooner than, like, more recent than that, but definitely not, like, 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
So the last...
That's a big...
Yeah, that is a big period. So the last
period.
glacial period technically ended 10,000 years ago, but it was connected 100,000 to 250,000 years ago. So it's a pretty long time ago.
100,000 years ago?
Yes.
Okay, so that's like a long time ago.
Right. But also, like, not like Pangea years, beginning of time. Fun fact, which I thought was funny, during the last ice age, you could actually, depending on if you were between one of those catastrophic floods, you could actually walk from continental Europe to the island. Like, it wasn't an island then, but you could walk out to what is now England, like over a landmass. You can no longer do that, obviously. So crossing the Channel from Britain to France, or vice versa, has always been a topic of conversation throughout history. However serious those conversations were taken. One of the earliest proposals to create a channel crossing came from Napoleon Bonaparte's mining engineer, this guy named Albert Mathieu Favier. In 1802, Favier proposed a 2-level underground passage. The top level would be for transportation, and the bottom would be for groundwater flow, which is just like water that comes from the ground. They would build a tunnel specifically for that and get rid of the water. So then this passage would have ventilation chimneys that would stretch above the waves, would be large enough for horse-drawn carriages to travel through, would be illuminated by oil lamps, and would have a small man-made island at the center of the crossing that would allow for horses to be changed out.
Cute.
Yeah. Napoleon 100% backed this idea. He loved it. But the Brits rejected the plan, probably because they were afraid Napoleon was going to use the tunnel to invade them, which, historians are like, would have been very likely. So it never happened. In 1881, there's these two guys. One guy's Sir Edwin Watkin, and he was a railway entrepreneur. And then there's this other guy, Alexandre Lavallee, and he was actually a contractor on the Suez Canal. They were both like, okay, let's revisit this idea of a channel crossing. Like, what can we do? So they began exploratory work on either side of the channel. On the English side, Watkin built a pilot tunnel that bore into what is called Shakespeare Cliff, which is in Dover. And they kind of built a pilot tunnel that was 6,211 feet long. On the French side, Lavallee did a pilot tunnel that bore from Saint-Gat, which was 5,476 feet long. The project was abandoned in 1882 because there was pressure on the British side that, from the politicians and the press, that a tunnel would compromise Britain's national defense. So they, threw it out.
It kind of makes sense. Like, being an island is beneficial.
It's hugely beneficial. Like, that's why, England did so well for so long, right?
Mm-hmm. Wait, so are these tunnels that they built then just, abandoned?
Funny you should say that, because the initial tunnels were actually found more than a century later when the Channel Project was initiated. So they found it, and they basically dug at the exact same places, like the Shakespeare Cliff and Saint-Gat. Is where they were like,
good golly, someone already started.
Good golly, Miss Marlowe, we got it.
They'd be like, oh my, looks like someone already started.
Exactly. So that was in 1882. They kind of were like, bye, we're not doing this. We don't trust each other enough yet. But by 19
trust each other to come together.
To just believe, okay? Relax. Because you know what? By 1955, the arguments against creating a tunnel due to national defense were basically void because of the prominence of air travel. Airplanes became more of like a threat than underwater travel via train. And by 1964, both England and France agreed to build a tunnel. Cool. And so there was a bunch of different processes they had to get through in different phases, who was going to do it, how are they going to do it, etc. Finally, phase 2 was let's start building. And that was in 1974. Construction was ready. But then Britain got all stingy and pulled out of the deal because of some like financial bullshit connected to this organization called the EEC, which is now part of the European Union. They were like, you know what? We're not ready to do this. We're not ready to do this. So they pulled out. Sadly, like both England and France had already installed the machines that were going to, bore the holes on either side of the channels. And pulling out of the agreement essentially cost the Brits $17 million. Whoops. Idiots. That's all I got to say. They're idiots. But finally, not much longer, in the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher, who was then the British Prime Minister, and the French president at the time, Francois Mitterrand, agreed that a connecting tunnel would be mutually beneficial to both nations. But
yes, they already agreed on that. They just need to get
everybody agrees.
Yeah.
We all agree. But here's the thing. It all comes down to money. Neither of these nations wanted to pay for it. They don't want to pay for it. And guess what? Neither nation did pay for it. They did agree, though, that they would look into privately funding the project. So, in 1985, private companies were invited to submit plans to create a link across the English Channel. Per the requirements, the submitting company had to provide a plan to raise the needed funds. They had to be able to operate the link once it was completed, and then they had to have the link be able to last for at least 120 years, which I think, like, if you're going to put the money in, you might as well want it to last for all time. But they said at least 120 years. Overall, 10 companies submitted 10 separate proposals. Some were tunnels and some were bridges. The proposal that was accepted was a plan for the Channel Tunnel, and it was submitted by the Channel Tunnel Group and France Manche. Manche is what the French call the channel, which means sleeve, because it looks like a sleeve opening up. Anyway, so those are the two companies that were like, yes, you can do it.
Wait, seems kind of suspicious that the company name was the Channel Tunnel.
Yeah, well, because that's what
so it was made just to make this tunnel then.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So how did this get financed? Like I said before, France and Britain were not going to pay for the construction of the Channel link. So the tunnel was constructed as a, quote, build, own, operate, transfer project with a concession, also known as a boot. To simplify this, a boot is a form of project delivery, usually for large-scale, like industrial infrastructure projects. And I pulled this next part from Wikipedia because it was like easier to read this than to try and describe what a boot is. Quote, a boot is when a private entity receives a concession from the public sector to finance, design, construct, own, and operate a facility stated in a concession contract. This enables the project proponent to recover its investment, operating and maintaining expenses in the project. So basically, these private companies would raise their own money, build this thing, operate it, get their money back, and then sign over, ownership, transfer ownership back to France and Britain.
But then, did they continue to make money off of it? Because if they just broke even, then what's the point?
No, I think it's like in the contract that like you have it for X number of years to make X amount of money, and then you transfer it back. So by the time it was like, let's get this project in motion, they had raised 2.6 billion euros. But in 1994, when it was like all completed, the completion cost in the 1985 prices was 4.65 billion euros, which was an 80% cost overrun, which is crazy.
Good job.
Yeah. So the British and French governments gave these companies a 55-year operating concession. So they had 55 years to like make back their money and then some. Eventually, they extended it to 65 years. So the contract was over in 1993. And it was always to like repay their loans and to pay dividends and all that good stuff. So let's get digging.
Wait, you said the contract was over in 1993?
Oh, sorry. No. They added 10 more years in 1993.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the contract is still going on as we speak?
It's still going on. Yes, correct. Let's get digging. First, the funds had to be raised. They were raised by over 50 large banks that gave loans. They needed to find experienced engineers. 13,000 skilled and unskilled workers had to be hired and housed. And the tunnel boring machines had to be put back in place. The ones left over from the attempt 10 years ago, like had found new homes. So they needed to bring in new equipment. Designers had to decide like where the tunnel should be dug, specifically in relation to the geology of the channel. So there's a bunch of different layers, most of which are chalk. So they picked one of the chalk layers called the lower chalk layer and decided to dig through that. And by 1988, the tunnel was then bore through simultaneously from the British and French coast with the plan to meet in the middle. So they started at the exact same time and they were like, see ya in the middle, friends.
Oh my gosh, this is like a math question.
Yes. Let's see.
They were probably so happy when they finally saw each other in the middle.
Yes. Oh my God. It's actually kind of cute. So the British side, like I said, started at Shakespeare Cliff, where they had tried it in 1880. And the French side started at Sangat, again, where they had started in 1880. The machines that do the boring are called tunnel boring machines, also known as TBMs. And they cut through the chalk, collect the debris, and then transport it out of the tunnel on conveyor belts. The debris is known as spoil and would be hauled to the surface using railway wagons on the British side, or on the French side, they would mix it with water and pump it out through the tunnel. And if you're wondering what happened to all of this spoil, you can actually travel to Samphire Hoe, which is a country park located 2 miles west of Dover. And the park was created using 4.9 million cubic meters of chalk spoil from the Channel Tunnel excavations, which is kind of nice that they didn't just like, it's not all of it, but they use some of it to like create a little park, which is cute. As the chalk is bore away, the tunnel is then coated with a shit ton of concrete to help the tunnel withstand like intense pressure from above and to help waterproof it. Yeah, like this always scares me. Whenever I go in like an underground tunnel, like under like a large body of water, I'm like, I am putting
so heavy.
I'm putting so much trust in these engineers, like the Holland Tunnel that connects New Jersey to Manhattan or New York. Okay, that was built in like the early 1900s, and I just have to trust these engineers from the early 1900s that everything's okie dokie smoky.
And once you're in there, it's like there's no way out.
No, you're either gonna you're surviving or dying. It's like a 50-50. Yeah, no. So over the next 4 years, nearly 13,000 workers dug 95 miles of tunnels at an average depth of 150 feet below sea level. 8 million cubic meters of soil were removed at a rate of some 2,400 tons per hour. That's crazy. And at peak construction, there was 15,000 workers, and there's a daily expenditure of $3 million.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the most difficult tasks of the Channel Tunnel project was making sure that the British side and the French side actually like met in the middle.
Oh yeah, I guess because they have to make sure they're on like the same way and they like go past each other.
Right, because so like they use special lasers and like tons of, surveying equipment to like make sure. But at the time, there was no way of 100% knowing that they were going to hit at the exact point that they needed to. I mean, even if you're like a couple inches off, it could completely F the whole thing.
You like hear them next to you, you're like, God damn.
Fuck. Yeah. So no one was really sure if it was going to work. It did work. We have the Channel Tunnel, so no need to get all tense and anxious at home there, folks. I'm sweating spinal fluid here. So, the service tunnel was dug first, and it was actually the first to meet in the middle. And they celebrated the meeting of the two sides on December 1st, 1990. 2 workers, one British, a guy named Graham Fague, and one French, Philippe Cosette. They were chosen by a lottery system to be the first to shake hands through the opening and to exchange flags, which is really cute.
Shake hands? They should have kissed.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Maybe they did kiss. It's just like, it's like history secret.
It's like that meme, like, what if we kissed in the middle of the tunnel?
I love it. So after they shook hands and exchanged flags, hundreds of workers kind of like went back and forth, and they were drinking champagne and celebrating, and it was really cute. That was not the end of their digging, however. The northern tunnel met on May 22nd, 1991, and the southern tunnel met on June 28th, 1991. But there was still more to complete. Crossover tunnels needed to be built, as well as land tunnels from the coast to the terminals. Electrical systems needed to be finalized, fireproof doors, the ventilation system, and of course the train tracks and the terminals. 10 workers, sadly, 8 of them were British, were killed during the construction between 1987 and 1993, most in the first few months of the boring. I couldn't actually find more information on like what happened, but I'm assuming like construction deaths.
Yeah,
it's just sad.
It's a very dangerous job.
Very dangerous. So the tunnel officially opened on May 6, 1994, and it cut travel time between England and France to 35 minutes, and the travel between London and Paris to a very short 2.5 hours.
Oh my gosh, that's great. It's a nice
It's
little
great.
weekend trip for you.
Exactly.
Where can we drive in 2.5 hours? Milwaukee.
Yeah, Starved Rock, nothing. Each day, about 30,000 people, 6,000 cars, and 3,500 trucks journey through the tunnel on passenger, shuttle, and freight trains. And in 1996, the American Society of Civil Engineers voted the tunnel as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world, which Grace talked about in one of our very, very first episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you talked about the tunnel, but there's so many different lists.
Yeah. If you listen to the episode, you'll know there's not just one list, but there are like 7 industrial wonders of the world. It was probably somewhere in that list.
So in case you were wondering, you do need a passport to ride via the tunnel. Passports are checked before boarding and then again once you arrive at your destination. French officials operate out of St. Pancras, and British officials operate at Calais. And depending on where you board, you may have to stop, get off the train, and have someone check your passport before you can actually continue on with your crossing. In relation to Brexit, like this is a big question now that like we're facing Brexit and like British leaving the European Union, traveling will be very different. As of February 2019, the United Kingdom and France still have time to negotiate terms under how the railway will operate. So far, like according to their agreements, the trains will be allowed to use the Channel Tunnel for 3 months if the UK leaves the EU, without a deal. So that's like as far as they've gotten in their negotiations, but it's like a big thing.
You guys, remember why you started this.
Yeah.
Okay? It's mutually beneficial.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Like, I mean, obviously the Brexit thing is like bonkers, but think about how difficult it will be to travel in Europe without the channel for some people. It's crazy. I am going to note that there have been migration issues related to the channel. So migrants and asylum seekers actually use the channel as a way to attempt to enter Britain. So this has kind of always been an issue since the channel opened. In 1999, the French Red Cross set up a migrant center at Sangatte. And by 2002, it housed 1,500 people trying to get into the UK. By 2015, most of the migrants at this camp had come from Eastern Africa. And the ways that these migrants try to get into the UK through the tunnel, they actually try and sneak onto the passenger train. Sometimes they get onto the freight train by being in trucks that are driven onto the freight trains, and those trucks are transported across the channel. Some will jump onto the moving trains from bridges. And in one case, someone actually walked the entire length of the tunnel before they were arrested. I mean, migration and like asylum seeking and refugees is like a very big topic in Europe and in the entire world, but especially in the European Union, where some countries have, quotas of like how many refugees they can and they will or won't accept. And, people are just living in camps, and it's just really sad. Eurotunnel manages and operates like the channel right now. They said that more than 37,000 migrants were intercepted between January and June of 2015 trying to cross. I know. It's crazy.
That's a lot of people that are trying to.
I know. And I just think it's amazing that there's some people that are like, well, they should, figure it out. They're just like trying to come to our country and steal our jobs and make everything horrible. And it's like, do you understand how horrible your life or how difficult your life must be to like live in a refugee camp and then do anything you can to like cross the channel? Yeah. 37,000 people in 6 months in 2015 tried to cross the channel for a better life. Anyway, just wake up and check your privilege is what I'm trying to say.
Not to mention that a lot of these, countries that people do try and seek asylum into are kind of a lot of times the reason why some of these other countries are so corrupt and doing so poorly, especially when it comes to like the US and South America, which we talked about in a previous episode about, England too. I don't know about England as much.
Right, but yeah.
But yeah, it's like, well, they can't come here. Meanwhile, they're the ones like, effing up these other countries.
Exactly. It's kind of like look into your history and understand why these people might be doing what they're doing and have a little bit of empathy for your other human beings. Let me see here. As of July 2015, there were between 3,000 and 5,000 migrants living in the temporary camps at Calais in hopes to get to England. There's a lot of people. A lot of people. not to end, I don't want to end on a depressing note. There are other ways to cross the channel should you be interested. There are ferries. The number of ferry routes crossing the channel have been reduced significantly since the opening of the channel. Actually, the ferry operators were super pissed when the channel was like finally approved. They were like, God damn, we're going to lose money. We're going to lose passengers. And they did, sadly. Yeah. But you can still cross via ferry at Dover, New Haven, Plymouth, Poole, Portsmouth, Rosslare, Weymouth, Calais, Dunkirk, Dieppe, Cherbourg, Jersey, Guernsey, St. Malo, Le Havre, and Osterham. That's like a lot of places.
Plenty of choices. Yeah.
You do.
Or you can buy like a €60 ticket on Ryanair and make it over. But
20
ferries and trains are more eco-friendly. So.
They are. Take the channel. And if ferries aren't your thing, you can also swim across. I didn't do much research into the swimming, but there are people that swim the channel, and they like train for years, and then they do the channel crossing.
Those are the types of people who like run marathons, which if that's your thing, that's your thing.
Do it.
But you like to test your body in ways that I have no interest in doing.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm just gonna stay at home and watch my soap operas. So, speaking of the channel, have you ever ridden through the channel?
No, I haven't.
I have ridden through the channel.
Wow, were you on a passenger train?
I was actually freight train. No, when I was studying abroad, we did like our fall trip. The first stop was London, second stop was Paris. And obviously the cheapest way to travel from London to Paris was through the channel instead of taking the, flying Ryanair.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was 18 at the time, so I had no idea how to travel internationally. I was a mess. That's amazing that I even made it to London and then made it to Paris and then made it back to Italy. You show up at the train station. It was at King's Cross, I think. We were, or no, it was St. Pancras. That's where we were. You show up and you're like at customs or whatever, and it's like a French guy like speaking French at me, and I'm like,
you're like, sorry, I'm an American.
Can you just let me on the train, please?
I heard you got yourselves a channel here, and
let me just tip my hat to you, sir. Working for your country, Oh my god. And yeah, I got on the channel, and it was fun. It was interesting because we sat across.
Funnel.
It was funnel. We sat across from a French guy, and he heard us speaking English, me and my roommate at the time. And he just wanted to practice his English. So we just like talked to this guy the whole time. And he was asking us like what we plan to do. And like looking back, like now I would have been much more cautious, but he wrote down like a list of like all of the amazing things to do in Paris while we could for 3 days. And we ended up doing them. And there were so many cool things. And I think about that guy and I'm like, I wonder where that guy is.
You're just riding the channel, giving people some good traveling tips.
It's true. It's true. So that's that.
That's the channel. If you have any more questions, you can ask us because we're from England. So
we are from England, like.
Sorry.
I'm from Liverpool.
We are the only people who enjoy our English accents, but we can't stop and we don't get to use them in our day-to-day. This is like our podcast is the only time we really get to stretch our accent
I know.
muscles.
You know what I do? I have started doing now? All I do is I say, thanks. Thanks, love. Because I'm annoying. If you're wondering why I do
like
that, it's because I'm annoying.
I may have to try that.
You should.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks ever so much, love,
for
listening.
Thanks for listening. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at The Good Eve Girls.
Or Instagram at The Good Evening Girls.
Or TikTok at The Good Eve Girls.
That's where our saucy content is. We say it every week and we haven't gotten a single new follower. Why don't our followers, our listeners, have TikToks? They don't trust China.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's fair. But yeah, so that's that on that.
That's that on that.
Thought.
Thanks so much for listening.
Leave us a review if you want.
Oh, yes, please do.
Yeah, if you're listening on iTunes. And other than that, I guess we will see you next week.
We will see you and you will hear us next week. Have a great week, my friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye.